Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Israel and Iran exchange strikes as the conflict escalates. Tehran says Israel carried out a fresh attack on the Fordo nuclear site, claims Iranian missiles hit a U.S. military base in Syria. Trump warns of a regime change, even as his deputy claims that they are at war with Iran's nuclear program and not with the nation. The world is divided over American strikes on Iranian soil. China and Russia slammed the move. Arab nations expressed dismay but stopped short of condemnation. Europe backs the U.S. line, says Iran can never acquire a nuclear bomb. Flight operations in West Asia disrupted as the airspace over Israel and Iran remain closed. Oil prices rise after Iran's parliament unanimously approves closing the Strait of Hormuz and disrupting around 20% of the world's oil supply. The final decision on closing the strait lies with the country's National Security Council. Indian benchmark indices dragged lower by global concerns over the escalating tensions in the Middle East, but there's no strong sell-off. The Sensex and the Nifty shed over 0.5% each. The mid-cap index closes in the green. Global markets also deal with mild aftershocks. UK stocks tread water. German and French stocks see mild losses. Asian markets trade mixed. Food credit doubled in the first 2 months of FY26 on the back of robust wheat procurement. Early Kharif sowing signals the momentum is likely to continue, but non-food credit hits a 3-year low. The government is unlikely to extend the waiver on transmission charges for interstate renewable energy projects beyond the 30th of June. Sources say industry may face higher tariffs in a phased manner as developers factor in added transmission costs. At least 7 people reportedly killed and over 22 injured in Kyiv after Russia launched over 352 drones and 16 missiles at various parts of Ukrainian territory. This latest barrage is one of the biggest since the conflict began in Feb of 2022. Well, the top story this evening, Israel and Iran continue to trade strikes. Days after Donald Trump thrust the U.S. into the war, Israel said it launched an attack into the heart of Tehran and said it struck the notorious Evin prison and security command centers. The Fordo uranium enrichment facility, which was one of the 3 nuclear sites to be targeted by the U.S. Army over the weekend, was struck yet again. United Nations nuclear watchdog has said that the underground parts of the facility have been significantly damaged. Iran, meanwhile, launched a barrage of missiles targeting Israel over a 40-minute period. It also claimed to have struck a U.S. military base in Syria. Tehran warned that the U.S. may have started the war, but it will end it. Meanwhile, people took to the streets across American cities to demonstrate against President Trump. Protests also broke out in Tehran. Trump warned of a regime change in Iran. The president's comments came hours after Vice President J.D. Vance insisted that the U.S. was only at war with Iran's nuclear program and not with the nation itself.
No, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program, and I think the president took decisive action to destroy that program last night. We have to give an incredible amount of gratitude to the troops who did an amazing thing last night. Think about this, John. They flew thousands of miles away, a 30-hour nonstop flight. They never touched down on the ground, and they dropped a 30,000-pound bomb on a target about the size of a washing machine. No military in the world has the training, the skills, and the equipment to do what these guys did last night. I know the president and I are both very proud of them.
Well, that's J.D. Vance. Now, the world is divided over American strikes on Iranian soil. China and Russia have slammed the move. Europe has backed the U.S. line. Parikshit standing by now to take us through how leading nations in the world are reacting. Parikshit, the call for de-escalation. Take us through the key messages coming in from global leaders.
The world has been calling for de-escalation but has been largely divided on the U.S. attacks on Iran in support of Israel. The 57-member Organization of Islamic Cooperation has called on Israel to stop attacks against Iran. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation will be setting up a ministerial contact group for de-escalation. Saudi Arabia, Qatar and other Gulf Arab countries expressed dismay over the American attack. However, the Gulf nations have stopped short of condemning the United States, possibly because the U.S. has bases in the region. China has criticized both U.S. and Israel, calling for de-escalation of conflict with Iran. The Chinese ambassador went to the extent of telling the UN Security Council that U.S. has violated Iranian sovereignty and exacerbated tensions. Remember, China gets a large chunk of its oil and energy needs through the Strait of Hormuz. China has been calling for stability through shipping routes in the Middle East. Iran's foreign minister is in Moscow for serious consultations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Dmitry Medvedev, ex-Russian president, has launched an attack on President Trump and questioned the effectiveness of the US operation. He claimed that critical nuclear infrastructure in Iran has been unaffected. Medvedev said that number of nations ready to supply Iran with nuclear warheads is increasing. Putin has said that Russia will take into account that 2 million people from the erstwhile Soviet Union and Russia live in Israel. Clearly, this statement shows that Russia's response so far to the US attack on Iran has been muted, and experts say they are unlikely to extend any real help to Iran. Prime Minister Modi has spoken to Iranian president calling for de-escalation and diplomacy. European leaders and EU Commission President have called for a diplomatic solution, but they've also backed the US line that Iran must never acquire a nuclear bomb. Ursula von der Leyen going to the extent of saying that negotiating table is the only place to end the crisis.
Parikshit, many thanks. In fact, the closure of Israeli and Iranian airspace has disrupted flight across the region. Airlines have been forced to reroute flights. Several airline companies cancelled flights to and from Dubai, Riyadh and Doha over the weekend. Madiha is standing by with more. Madiha.
The Middle East has been a crucial corridor for flights connecting the West and Asia. But if we take a look at the map we recorded from Flight Radar 24, you see something unusual. The typically congested airspace is now largely empty. This follows Israel's strikes on Iran on the 13th of June. Since then, many international airlines have suspended some flights through the region and are rerouting via alternate routes. As a result, we've seen a dramatic surge in overflight activity through Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. And it's not only the Iran and Iraqi airspace, the conflict is having a ripple effect on air travel across the Middle East, impacting countries like Jordan, Kuwait, the UAE, especially Dubai and Qatar. Take Singapore Airlines, for example. It has cancelled the Singapore to Dubai flights from June 22nd to 25th. With the Iranian and Iraqi airspace now unavailable, the airline is rerouting flights to Europe. Its Singapore-Istanbul service, which would usually cross Iraq, is now taking a much longer route over Afghanistan. Another major carrier, which is British Airways, has also made significant adjustments. Its London-Dubai flight, which previously passed through the Iraqi airspace, is now being rerouted through Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, the London-Mumbai flight, British Airways London-Mumbai flight, which also used to fly over Iraq, now detours all the way through Tajikistan to enter India. Air India, which operates the same Mumbai-London route, has even bigger problems as it also has to avoid the Pakistan airspace. So instead of flying over Iran, it is now using the Saudi Arabian airspace. And Indigo's Mumbai-Istanbul service, which typically flew over Iraq, is now taking a longer detour through Saudi Arabia. These detours not only increase flight times and fuel costs, but also put added pressure on the air traffic capacity of the alternate airspaces now being used. The situation remains fluid, and airlines are continuing to monitor development closely. We'll keep tracking these changes as they unfold.
Yes, Madiha, many thanks. Important story there. And crude prices, meanwhile, hitting a 6-month high over fears that Iran might close the Strait of Hormuz and disrupt the supply of oil globally. The strait accounts for nearly 20% of global oil and LNG shipments. Several brokerage firms now believe that crude oil prices could touch even $130 per barrel. Meanwhile, Union Oil Minister Hardeep Puri says the government had anticipated the possibility of such disruptions and had diversified its supply, adding that India has enough stock to last up to 3 weeks. Take a look.
We had diversified the sources of supply, and out of the 5.5 million barrels of crude oil that India consumes daily, about 1.5 and 2 million only come through the Straits of Hormuz. We import roughly 4 million barrels through other routes, and our companies, the oil marketing companies, have enough stocks. Most of them have stocks up to 3 weeks. One of them has in fact 25 days stocks. And we are also confident that we can increase the supply of crude through other routes should the situation so warrant.
That's the Oil and Gas Minister Hardeep Puri. Now, the conflict in West Asia has also impacted Indian exports to Iran. Nearly 1 lakh metric tons of basmati rice stuck at Kandla and Mundra ports. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, the All India Rice Exporters Association said that the exports can't be sent to Iran as no insurance company provides cover to vessels entering a conflict zone. Exporters also worried a further impact if Iran decides to close the strait of Hormuz. Now, Iran has threatened to pull out from the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons Treaty after the US strikes on its nuclear sites. But what is the significance of the treaty and what is India's position? Sandhya is here to decode that for us. Sandhya.
Shireen, the ongoing US-Israel-Iran conflict has brought the NPT back into focus. The NPT is aimed at preventing the spread of nuclear weapons and promoting cooperation in the peaceful use of nuclear energy. Signed in 1968 and coming into force in 1970, the NPT has 191 state parties divided into nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states. The state parties that manufactured or exploded a nuclear weapon before 1st of January 1967 are classified as nuclear weapon states. The rest of the parties are non-nuclear weapon states. Under the NPT, the non-nuclear weapon states commit not to manufacture or acquire nuclear weapons, and the nuclear weapon states commit not to encourage or assist non-nuclear weapon states in acquiring nuclear weapons. Nuclear powers like India, Pakistan, Israel and North Korea are not NPT parties. India calls the treaty discriminatory, unequal and flawed, and North Korea withdrew from the treaty in 2003. So if Iran withdraws from the treaty, it will no longer be legally bound to allow the International Atomic Energy Agency to inspect its nuclear sites, nor will it be legally bound to refrain from building nuclear weapons. Iran says it signed the NPT and adhered to the IAEA Safeguard Agreement, unlike Israel, which not only didn't sign the NPT and never allowed IAEA inspections, but also does not even acknowledge its nuclear program. Iran has accused the Western world of conspiring against it by falsely accusing it of violating the NPT in order to destabilize the Middle East and further its oil agenda in the region. The Western world, however, claims that despite signing the NPT, Iran is flouting its norms. In 2005, Shireen, the IAEA passed a resolution accusing Iran of non-compliance with its comprehensive safeguards agreement under the treaty. Back then, despite its long-standing business, traditional and historic relationship with Iran, India voted against Iran. In 2006, again, when the resolution was referred to the UNSC, India again voted against Iran. Experts say that at the time, India was keen on portraying itself as a responsible nuclear power, and that's why it voted against Iran. However, since 2024, when resolutions were passed against Iran at the IAEA, on 3 occasions, India abstained from voting each time. The ongoing conflict will have long-lasting effects on India and Indo-Iran relations. India has considered Iran a strategic and trading partner. The Chahabad port is India's response to China's Gwadar port in Pakistan. Hence, the conflict and its outcome are extremely crucial for India as well.
Sandhya, many thanks for joining us. On to the day's market action. Markets did give up early gains, ending in the red today amidst weak global cues, with the Sensex slipping just about 0.5%, closing below 82,500 point cut there, and 140 points lower there on the Nifty. But the mid-cap index closing in the green, 200-point up move there as far as the broader markets were concerned. In the currency market, the rupee weakened against the US dollar. This after the dollar index strengthened following the US strikes on Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend. The rupee closing 16 paise weaker at 86.75. That's dollar rupee for you. Now, Aditya Birla Lifestyle Brands is listed on the stock exchanges after its demerger from Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. The demerged business listed on the NSE at 167 rupees a share, slightly lower than its discovered price of 171 rupees a share. Aditya Birla Lifestyle Brands comprises Reebok, Louis Philippe, Van Heusen, Alan Solly and Peter England, among others. Sona Comstar has appointed Jeffrey Mark Overly as the new chairperson of its board of directors. The appointment comes days after Sanjay Kapoor's death. Kapoor passed away at the age of 53 after suffering a heart attack in London. Overly has been on the company's board for almost 5 years. Priya Sachdev Kapoor, Sanjay Kapoor's wife, has been appointed an additional non-executive director. Both the appointments are subject to shareholder approval. Food credit disbursed by banks has doubled in the first 2 months of the current fiscal year, hitting 34,000 crore rupees, driven by strong wheat procurement by the Food Corporation of India and other state agencies. Sapna standing by now to take us through what she is piecing together. Sapna.
the data speaks for itself. So if you look at the financial year on year, well, that's a jump of almost 100%. It's double, 34,000 crores versus 17,000 crores April, May last year. And also calendar on calendar, the jump is even bigger. It's almost close to tenfold growth. So around 33,000 crores versus a mere 3,500 crores worth of offtake in terms of food credit by banks last year. So that's one piece of it. Well, of course, the reasons are wheat procurement. So if you look at the wheat procurement data itself, 30.88 million is somewhere the government has done in terms of the procurement, 16% higher year on year. And interestingly enough, this is also the highest among the last 3 Rabi marketing seasons. So if you look at, say for example, 2023, the data, it was around 18 to 19 odd million tons of wheat had been procured. And that graph kept going up, and now we are almost close to 31 million odd. So what it has done is that it has really helped in terms of the food stock, overall food stock, and also in terms of the buffer requirement, and plus very important, what kind of allocation goes to the PDS system. That is basically the free food grains program that the government has been running. So, of course, if you look at the central pool, as of now, around 38 million tons of wheat is there. This is double of what is required in terms of the PDS offtake. That's somewhere around 17 odd million tons is required in terms of the free food grain program. And plus, that 38 million odd tons is actually 4 to 5 million tons higher than your buffer requirement. So this is all very good news. Now, there's also another development that's happening parallelly because of the early monsoon. The Kharif sowing has actually already started, and what we are given to understand from the data, of course, and this is the latest number from the Food Ministry, is that the acreage, or rather the area sown, especially for rice, has actually gone up. It's already higher by around 11 odd percent. These are May end numbers, early June. So, the rest of the season still remains. So, net, this is a good indicator for the rural economy. This is what we are given to understand. And possibly, if this is the way that things will continue, probably another bumper harvest, as far as Kharif at least is concerned, there is no reason to think that the growth in food credit is going to flag off. Or rather, it's expected to continue. That's what the broad expectation is.
Sapna, many thanks. Now, the Finance Ministry has allowed central government employees 3 more months to decide between the new unified pension scheme and the national pension system. The deadline has been extended from the end of the month to the 30th of September. This is the second time that the government has extended the cut-off date to choose between the 2 schemes. The Ministry of Statistics has constituted an 8-member technical expert group to aid the National Statistical Office to conduct an all-India household income survey. Former Executive Director to the IMF, Surjit Bhalla, will chair the group. The government is planning to begin the survey in 2026. This will be the first full-fledged income distribution survey by the National Sample Survey. The Indian government is unlikely to extend the waiver of transmission charges for interstate renewable energy projects beyond the 30th of June. Sources say industry may face higher tariffs in a phased manner as developers factor in added transmission costs. Shivani standing by with more. Shivani, take us through the impact.
Well, that's right. The ISTS waiver, or the Interstate Transmission System waiver, which has been a crucial policy tool since 2019, is unlikely to be extended beyond the June 30th deadline. That's what the government sources are telling us. Now, DISCOMs and the industry has been pushing for an extension in this case. These charges are a major cost component for developers, and the waiver helped make solar and wind project bids more competitive in the recent years in India. While the exemption was originally set to end in 2023, it was extended till June 2025 to support India's 500 gigawatt renewable energy target. Now, from July onwards, new clean energy projects may face increased cost as developers will need to pay ISTS charges, potentially pushing up green power tariffs in India. Now, this could affect ongoing project bids, financing assumptions, and even the pace of future renewable installations. Delayed projects also that counted on the waiver are at risk, potentially becoming financially unviable. According to industry sources, the ISTS waiver has saved developers approximately anywhere between 0.5 rupees to 1.6 rupees per unit, which is a big chunk of their competitiveness. So now, from 1st July, if this extension is not granted, which government sources say will not be, transmission charges are slated to return in stages. 25% of applicable ISTS charges for projects commissioned between July 2025 and June 2026, gradually rising to 100% by July of 2028. Back to you.
Shivani, many thanks. Up next, Tesla soft launches its much-awaited robo-taxis on the roads of Texas. That and more when we return. You can catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Jio Hotstar. A public interest litigation, a PIL, has been filed in the Supreme Court seeking the suspension of Air India's Boeing fleet within 2 weeks. This comes after the fatal crash in Ahmedabad that killed 241 out of the 242 people on board. Remember, Air India announced that it will temporarily reduce 118 weekly flights operated with narrow-body aircraft across 19 routes. Ashmit is here with more on the PIL that's been filed in the top court. Ashmit.
Well, as far as the PIL is concerned, it is seeking the grounding, the suspension of the entire Boeing fleet as far as Air India is concerned. What the petition says, the PIL says that there should be at least a 2-week period of suspension of Boeing flights wherein a safety audit should be conducted. And it is only after, once it is cleared, once the Boeing fleet is cleared, that these planes of Air India fleet should be allowed to take to the skies. Not just that, the petition goes on to say that various aircraft provisions of the Aircraft Act, aircraft rules, the civil aviation requirements are not being followed to the T, and that towards that end, there needs to be a direction given to the centre, a direction given to the DGCA to come out with a fresh set of guidelines that will provide for a sequential manner of audits that are done as far as these aircrafts are concerned, that there are periodic checks, there's a periodic checks for compliance with the civil aviation requirements, with the various rules in place. Also going on to say that there should be unannounced audits that should take place as far as fleets of the Indian carriers are concerned, and that if at all there is any discrepancy found, there should be penalties levied. And in fact, speaking of discrepancies, what the petition also seeks is that if there's any discrepancy found with the aircraft, it should be grounded. It should not be allowed to take to the skies. And these are a whole host of remedies and reliefs that this PIL has been seeking. It cites the Boeing whistleblowers report as well. It also cites personal experiences of the petitioner. It also cites various social media and media accounts of inconveniences that were faced by various passengers, whether it's in reference to the seat, to the in-flight management, to the air conditioning. And these are aspects that have been flagged as a part of this PIL. We understand this was filed today. It is yet to be taken up by the Supreme Court.
Well, let's see if the court will entertain this PIL. Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. Also, the DGCA has already mandated measures which require additional maintenance as well as audit steps. And according to Air India public information, that more than 20 aircraft have been cleared by the DGCA after having undergone that process. Now, to move towards One Nation, One Time, the Telecom Ministry has written to internet service providers, nudging them to adopt the Indian Standard Time. Currently, there is no legal mandate for the same. The government is batting for IST adoption as it believes it will help address the issues of national and cybersecurity risks, ensure more accurate regulatory reporting and management of critical infra like railways. The National Investigation Agency has arrested 2 men for allegedly harbouring the terrorists who carried out the Pahalgam attack. An NIA spokesperson has said that the 2 men confirmed the terrorists were Pakistani nationals affiliated to the terrorist outfit Lashkar-e-Toiba. The 2 men also disclosed the identities of the 3 armed terrorists involved in the attack. YSRCP chief and former Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy has been named as an accused in a recent fatal road accident. The accident allegedly led to the death of a 65-year-old party activist on the outskirts of Andhra Pradesh. The accident reportedly took place while Jagan Mohan Reddy was en route to Rentapalla in Andhra Pradesh, Palnadu district. In international news, Israel has said it has recovered the bodies of 3 captives held in the Gaza Strip since Hamas's 2023 attack. This comes as the Israeli military's attack in the besieged enclave killed more than 30 Palestinians. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said the pressure Israel has put on Iran is helping the mission in Gaza. At least 7 people have been killed, dozens injured in a massive Russian drone and missile strike on Ukraine's Kyiv and nearby regions. The attacks sparked fires in residential areas and damaged the entrance to a metro station bomb shelter. 4 children among those injured. President Zelensky said preliminary reports indicate that ballistic weapons from North Korea were also used. Tesla's robo-taxi service has been launched in Texas. The first rides, which were priced at about $4, being offered in parts of Austin. A small group of influencers were invited to participate in the closely monitored pilot. The robo-taxis use driverless Tesla Model Y vehicles. However, the electric vehicle maker has not provided details on the scope of the Tesla robo-taxi launch itself. Here's a report.
Tesla robo-taxis have picked up their first customers. The firm said Sunday it had deployed a small fleet of the self-driving vehicles in Austin, Texas, with boss Elon Musk announcing the move on social media. A select group of influencers had been invited to take part in the rides. and some soon started posting videos. It marked the first time that Tesla cars have carried paying riders without a human driver. Musk says that's a business that is crucial to the company's future and called it the culmination of a decade of hard work. Tesla cars were spotted early Sunday in an Austin neighborhood called South Congress. Though they had no driver, they each had someone in the front passenger seat. The automaker says they are safety monitors, but it's unclear how much control they have over the cars. Musk says trips in the vehicles are being offered at a flat fee of $4.20, with the robo-taxis confined to a limited zone. Even if the trial succeeds, experts say Tesla faces huge challenges scaling up in Austin and other cities. One estimated it could take years or decades for a full robo-taxi industry to emerge. Musk says Tesla will be super paranoid about safety, avoiding bad weather and difficult intersections. The cars also won't carry children. Last week, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed legislation requiring a state permit to operate self-driving vehicles. The new law takes effect from September 1st and signals that officials from both parties want the industry to proceed cautiously. Besides requiring permits, it obligates firms to explain how first responders can deal with their vehicles in an emergency.
Well, that's Tesla's robo-taxi soft launch in Texas. And with that, it is time for us to drive out of this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks so much for watching. The news continues right here on CNBC TV 18. We're going to be back in a minute with the news.